Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, dumpster fire, Arrow, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, David Grush, dumpster fire, Arrow, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, David Grush,
for the masses.
Gary Nolan, Arrow, Gary Nolan, Arrow found no evidence of extraterrestrial technology, the lack of any evidence. Arrow found no evidence of extraterrestrial technology, the lack of any evidence. Trust me, bro, don't worry about the evidence. David Grush, trust me, bro, don't worry about the evidence. David Grush, with zero evidence.
No credible evidence thus far.
With zero evidence.
No credible evidence thus far.
Kirkpatrick's evidence. Where is Arrow's evidence? Kirkpatrick's evidence. Where is Arrow's evidence?
If I call your mother a hooker, if I call your mother a hooker, if I call your mother a hooker, mother a hooker, if I call your mother a hooker, if I call your mother a hooker, if I call your mother a hooker, mother a hooker.
Aliens and extraterrestrials. Trust me, bro. Trust me, bro.
If I call your mother a hooker, mother a hooker.
Aliens and extraterrestrials. Trust me, bro. Trust me, bro. Aliens and extraterrestrials. Trust me, bro. Trust me, bro.
If I call your mother a hooker, mother a hooker.
Aliens and extraterrestrials. Trust me, bro. Trust me, bro. Aliens and extraterrestrials. Trust me, bro. Trust me, bro. Arrow.
If I call your mother a hooker, mother a hooker.
Arrow.
Hooker, 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 hooker.
Arrow.
Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back. Tonight, I thought it would be a good idea to sort of flesh out and explore a story that almost no one seems to be noticing or talking about very much. And it is a story that is causing me to have actual anxiety the more that I think about it. And the story is that for quite some time now, there has been a group of UFO promoting wackadoos who has been influencing our government elected officials here in the United States, and of course also in some other countries like Canada. And they are also actively manipulating members of the media for promotion of their agenda, whatever that may be. And I think that's incredibly disturbing to think about, because if we examine it with sort of the wide lens of history, there has always been people making sort of out of this world claims about alien visitation on Earth or extraterrestrials. The difference is, up until recently, those people have not had very much sway with the promotion of these ideas and conspiracy theories with members of the United States government. And we will explore this from a bit of a historical perspective. Tonight, we'll be critically examining the influence of some of these UFO promoters and believers on the United States government and on members of the media. We'll be talking about some historical examples, and these examples delve into the interplay between conspiracy-minded individuals and public discourse and policy. The analysis that I have been doing really highlights the potential dangers posed by allowing people with incredibly fringe beliefs to permeate mainstream platforms, thereby affecting national decision-making and societal norms. So, of course, unidentified flying objects, UFOs, or the later term UAP, have captivated public imagination for decades. While often dismissed as pseudoscience or just conspiracy, the impact of UFO promoters and believers on the United States government and media cannot be ignored. Tonight, we'll investigate some historical instances where such influences were evident and critique the implications of the interactions on public policy and discourse. So, of course, all roads lead back to Roswell, and one of the most significant events, of course, in UFO lore, history, or mythology is the 1947 Roswell incident. Initially reported as a flying disc recovered by the U.S. Army, the narrative quickly changed to a weather balloon explanation. And despite official accounts, UFO enthusiasts and conspiracy theorists have perpetuated the idea of a government cover-up, a notion that gained traction in the 70s and 80s with the publication of several books and media coverage promoting the conspiracy theories around the Roswell event. And then, of course, in the late 1960s, the government was essentially influenced by public pressure to investigate some of these things. So they created the Condon Report. And the Condon Report conducted a scientific study on UFOs led by physicist Edward Condon. The Condon Report concluded that there was no compelling evidence for UFO phenomenon that warranted further investigation. However, the study's dismissal of UFOs did not quell public interest. Instead, it fueled further skepticism and conspiracy theories about government cover-ups, government transparency, and the intentions of those holding the secrets about aliens and UFOs. The Condon Report actually just served to embolden UFO proponents and promoters to challenge the official narratives more vigorously, often claiming that the government was covering up the truth about aliens and UFOs. And then, of course, there was Project Blue Book, which was an effort to systematically study UFO sightings. And while it aimed to demystify UFO reports, the project's closure without a definitive resolution led to continued public speculation. And media coverage during and after Project Blue Book often portrayed the government as either inept or somewhat deceitful, reinforcing conspiracy theories around cover-ups of alien and UFOs. In recent years, the promoters of this UFO belief system and alien visitation on Earth, the true believers, have had an incredible, much more success with influencing U.S. government discourse, notably with the recent establishment of both the UAP task force and with AARO. Organizations stood up and designed and funded in order to study UFOs and UAP. In recent years, there have been congressional hearings where military personnel testified about unexplained aerial encounters, which received significant media attention. These hearings were partly influenced by persistent lobbying from UFO advocates and increased media coverage of leaked military, footage depicting UFOs or UAPs. But it's important to note that much of this leaked military footage was actually very solvable events and were not often what they were purported to be. Promoters of these leaked military videos, including Jeremy Corbell, my favorite UFO garbage peddler, and others, they promoted these things as very mysterious or as alien spacecraft. But in most of the cases, these things turned out to be normal, ordinary objects, very earthly and not alien at all in origin. We have seen recently that people who have absolutely no evidence can get as far as Congress. Now, I get it. People will claim, oh, no, Dave Grush has got evidence, but it's classified and all this other stuff. He has no evidence he can share publicly. All right. Are you happy? I'll say it that way. I'm shocked and amazed. I mean, what does it cost to get that many members of Congress together for a hearing for the day? What is the building and maintenance cost of the facility you're going to do it in? How much money has been wasted by the United States government on investigating Dave Grush's apparently evidence-free claims of literal space monsters murdering humans on Earth? We've gotten to a point of ridiculousness where a literal cult of UFO true believers who apparently or have no actual real evidence of their claims are able to demand that the United States government spend time, resources, hire investigators, better buy a bigger office building. This is absolutely ridiculous if you think about it from this perspective. What if a bunch of true believer people who were true believers of unicorns started demanding that the government investigate sightings of unicorns? Would we do that? Would we waste millions upon millions of dollars looking for unicorns? And yet, when it comes to UFOs and aliens, they have been very successful, these true believers, at influencing the United States government to spend millions upon millions of dollars investigating their claims. And let's be clear, these are claims that people are making, and these are age-old claims that we've all heard so many times before. The government is in possession of alien technology. There's been alien crash spaceships, and they picked them up, and they're trying to back engineer them. These things have been talked about for decades. But one thing, out of the hundreds of stories, and believe me, we've done so many deep dives here investigating these claims and different stories. One thing you come away from when you use a wide angle lens of historical, a historical look at these stories is you come away going, oh, they're just stories. There is no evidence. These are just people telling stories. And I get it. Well, some of these are firsthand witnesses. Many of the firsthand witnesses' credibility fall apart under scrutiny. And if all we've got is witness testimony, I don't think that we should be wasting government time and resources on these things. Then, of course, there are the dangers that come along with some of these true believer idiots that have actually worked for the United States government. I heard some disturbing things about some of the so-called analysts that were on the UAP task force, including one analyst who believed that there was a 13-year-old girl, I think, poltergeist, who would tickle his feet. He believed that. So there also seems to be an infiltration of wackadoos into the United States government. After all, now we've got people like Nell saying, oh, aliens are absolutely true. And my proof for it is Paul Hellyer. By the way, we're going to get to some interesting video of Paul Hellyer talking about the most wackadoo shit in UFO land as if it was 100% real. That was his proof that aliens are here and visiting Earth, that Paul Hellyer believed it. Paul Hellyer believed a lot of things, and we're going to explore that tonight. And of course, we've got Dave Grush, a former mental patient who has wasted, in my view, probably now hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayer resources on his evidence-free conspiracy theories, which include the fact that alien space monsters are visiting Earth and murdering people, which he has absolutely no evidence that he can publicly share somehow. But we're all supposed to just waste time, resources, and money investigating these things. Like I said, what if this group was a bunch of people who were true believers in unicorns? Would we even, humor them? I don't think so. But since this topic, UFOs or UAPs, may be related to areas of national security, somehow the government, I suppose, they feel like they have to do something about these UFOs. Could be a national security problem. And that was, of course, an idea given to them by the purveyors and pushers of the 2016 New York Times article, who were pushing a UFO threat narrative. And of course, there is a real danger of conspiratorial influence on our public institutions, including government. The promotion of UFO conspiracies can erode trust in governmental institutions. When conspiracy theories gain a foothold, they undermine public confidence in official information channels, fostering a climate of suspicion and skepticism. This erosion of trust can have broader implications, weakening the societal fabric and making it more challenging to address legitimate policy issues effectively. Now, of course, there are people saying, well, there must be something to these alien stories because they're passing laws because of this testimony of David Rush. The United States government also passed laws after the testimony of another UFO wackadoo cult. They were called the Raelians, who testified before Congress and just straight lied to Congress about everything they said. Congress got very concerned about what the Raelian UFO cult were telling them under congressional testimony and passed some laws concerning what their concerns were about this UFO cult. So we can see that this current UFO cult is actively forcing United States representatives and elected officials to pass new laws to placate their faith-based, evidence-free belief system. This is extremely problematic. Allowing these conspiracy-minded individuals to influence laws and policies can lead to misguided decision-making. When policymakers are forced to cater to fringe beliefs, resources may be diverted from pressing issues to address unfounded claims. For instance, the establishment of the UAP Task Force, or AARO, while potentially valuable, also represents a response to public pressure driven by conspiracy theories rather than purely scientific inquiry. And as we could see from the AARO report, there was literally nothing to most of the people making these claims. People make claims, they were mistaken in some cases, they misinterpreted what they saw, what they heard, they repeated stories, the whole game of telephone. And then, of course, there is the matter of media responsibility. The media's role, after all, ladies and gentlemen, in amplifying UFO conspiracies also warrants investigation and scrutiny. Sensationalist reporting can legitimize fringe beliefs and conspiracy beliefs, providing them with a platform that distorts public perception. Responsible journalism should prioritize evidence-based, fact-based reporting, critically evaluating sources and claims to prevent the undue influence of unsubstantiated theories and literal fake stories on public discourse. We've all seen examples where members of the media ran with completely evidence-free stories. There is this race to publish now. Jeremy Corbell publishes a video that's clearly flares being dropped and says it's a giant pyramid spaceship. And then 300 to 500 to thousands of media outlets cut and copy and paste his story with their own slight spin so that they could still call it their story. And, you know, we've seen the media landscape change where so many outlets will just say, according to, so that they have no responsibility when the story falls apart. They get the clicks and the views, and they roll on to the next clickbait sensationalized story. There is no real, in my opinion, there's very little, I could count on one hand, real evidence-based reporters that are covering the UFO or alien topic. And I get it, it's a fringe topic. However, there are thousands of media organizations credulously covering alien and UFO stories to get those clicks and views. So what we could see through the lens of history is that the influence of UFO promoters and believers on the United States government and media highlights the complex interplay between fringe and conspiracy beliefs and mainstream institutions. While curiosity about the unknown is a natural human trait, it's important to critically assess the impact of allowing conspiracy theories and conspiracy theorists, especially if they have no evidence, to shape public policy and discourse. Upholding rigorous standards of evidence and maintaining transparency are crucial in mitigating the potential dangers posed by such influence. So I'll get off my soapbox now, I suppose, but I have more to share with you because we have specific examples now of people in the United States government that are just going full wackadoo. The alien and UFO promoters told them that the government's hiding aliens and UFOs, and they just believe it. It's incredible. And there's a bunch of senators and congressmen that have been really influenced by these very, let's just say, less than credible people pushing these stories and conspiracy theories. I'm going to put my fair use banner up. We're going to get into this, and this just happened today. So for those unaware, there is a long-standing conspiracy theory which essentially states that the Department of Energy is one of the organizations within the United States government that's hiding the alien secrets. I investigated some things myself, and all roads lead to Nowhereville. And by the way, I'm not going on a limb here and saying the Department of Energy is not hiding alien and UFO secrets. All I'm saying is I did a rather thorough investigation, take from that what you will, and I found no tangible proof or evidence. I found stories that would indicate the Department of Defense, and a lot of these stories come from, you guessed it, wackadoos. That's right, wackadoos. Actually, this is a public hearing. I don't even know that I need the fair use banner, but we're going to put it up. I want to thank UAP James, who always has these clips, him and Mike Colangelo. Saves me the trouble of clipping them and digging in. And so, and isn't it great that, I'm sure UAP James and Mike Colangelo and I disagree on almost everything, but I still find what they do valuable for what I do. So thank you for that. Rep Tim Burchett, he is the UFO alien wackadoo, this guy. He's buddies with Jeremy Corbell, right? And George Knapp. Tim Burchett asked Department of Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm about UAP sightings over nuclear facilities at today's Oversight Committee hearing. So let's take a listen to this. Let's get into it, Fred.
What is the responsibility of the Federal Protective Services within the Nuclear Security Administration?
Are you talking about transporting fuels?
No, ma'am. I want you to speak. Well, I was going to follow up with the numerous reports by the Federal Protective Services officers describing suspicious occurrences of UAPs over nuclear facilities. Oh,
let me just say the Defense Department has said there is no evidence of UFOs, et cetera, or aliens in the United States. However, at those sites, there may be drones that may be nefarious. And so we are definitely looking at that.
So that's interesting. And I saw Stephen Greenstreet of the New York Post earlier. He posted this clip and he said the secretary tried to tell Tim Burchett that there were no alien space monsters, but he wasn't having it. You got to love Tim Burchett. Dag nabbit. Dag nabbit. Yeah, dag nabbit. So yeah, and by the way, I watched a great deal of this hearing today, but these were the highlights.
And making sure that our national security sites are protected. We have a whole program related to countering drones that may be coming from.
Well, this isn't about drones, and this is prior to drones even. What protocols does the Department of Energy have for reporting and responding to any UAP sightings?
Now, remember, what we have to do is we have to peel back some layers of deception. Where is Rep Burchett getting his information that aliens and spaceships are infiltrating nuclear sites? He's getting it from Robert Salas and people who promote books about this. And as we saw in Brian Dunning's excellent Skeptoid movie, the UFO movie they don't want you to see, there was a power failure at the exact site that Robert Salas was at the exact time that he claimed aliens, UFOs flew over the base and shut down the missiles. This is what Burchett is referring to. And that is a completely and totally debunked fake story, a conflation of two different events. Sure, there was some kind of UFO sighting near this nuclear facility. And then a week later, there was a power failure, which caused a minutes-long shutdown of the missile weapon systems. They would be unable to launch them because of a power failure. That is what Burchett is actually, that's what actually happened. But Burchett is convinced that Robert Salas is right and there was alien spaceships that shut down nuclear missiles, and he wants to know what the government is doing about the aliens that are shutting down the nuclear missiles. But that's the problem. There's no real or verifiable true evidence that alien spaceships are shutting down nuclear missiles. And so this game, this circle jerk, it's all one big circle jerk. He accepts terrible information because he has no standards of evidence. Somebody told me this. I read it in a book. It must be true. They don't dig deeper to get to the actual truth or the root of the stories that they are promoting and basing their opinions off of. Burchett is convinced that alien spaceships are shutting down nuclear facilities and are a huge threat. And this poor defense secretary is trying to tell him, well, some of these things may be drones. We have a program to counter drones. He just doesn't want to hear it. He's convinced that the aliens are here.
Your nuclear infrastructure. And people joke about this, but I get a lot of questions about this concerning this and about this hearing today from my constituents. So I would appreciate you answering that if there are any protocols.
Yeah, and I would go out on a limb and say not one of his constituents cares about aliens or UFOs, right? Well, maybe one, but I really don't think that people are calling his office every day concerned with alien spaceships shutting down nuclear missiles. But that's exactly what he says here.
Certainly there are protocols whenever we see anything unusual around our nuclear sites or our national security sites writ large.
Clearly, there are protocols for whenever we see anything unusual around our nuclear sites or national security sites. Well, I think that says a lot. They've got protocols in place to handle this, but hey, let's waste more government resources because this idiot Tim Burchett read Robert Salas's bullshit book that's based on lies and misconceptions and the conflation of two separate events into one event. And let's not forget that Robert Salas, the guy he got his information from, later would claim that he's being abducted by aliens, right? Write some more UFO books, make some more UFO dollars. It's absolutely ridiculous that our elected officials are wasting time and resources on alien space monsters invading Earth. It's ridiculous. And at what point do we say, we're not going to waste any more time or resources on your unfounded bullshit fake claims based on nonsense? And then, of course, we've got another winner here, another idiot, and that would be Rep. Anna Paulina Luna. This clip is a little bit longer. Let me share my screen again. And I play you these just to, try to educate you. These elected officials are getting horrible information from true believing wackadoos, and then they're wasting our government time and resources asking the Department of Energy what they're doing about alien space monsters. It's so ridiculous. Well, this is 2024. How can it get any stupider than this, right? I'm telling you, they're going to have hearings on the invasion of unicorns next year.
From Florida.
Thank you, Chairman. Secretary Granholm, earlier when Representative Burchett asked you about some UAP stuff, you said that the DoD essentially had denied any existence of that, and you referred to them as drones, correct?
It's my understanding that the Department of Defense has looked at this and issued a report about it.
I have a lot of questions, so just quick and concise if possible. There have been persistent claims and reports, including those from credible whistleblowers to this committee.
Credible whistleblowers to this committee. What are the credible whistleblowers? Which credible whistleblowers? Is she talking about Ryan Graves and Dave Grush and Fravor? Those are credible whistleblowers? See, there's even a problem with the use of the term whistleblower, because whistleblowers have evidence to share. They don't just have stories that other people told them that they're repeating. Stories like alien space monsters are murdering humans on Earth when they visit Earth. So for her to even characterize Dave Grush as a credible whistleblower shows that she knows absolutely nothing about Dave Grush and where he's getting his information from. Because so far we know where he's getting a lot of his information from. It's from UFO wackadoos who have been making similar claims that he's making for decades, but never proving any of it.
Suggesting that the U.S. government, potentially including the Department of Energy, has been involved in reverse engineering technologies recovered from UAP. For example, the Pentagon's proposed Kona Blue program aimed at reverse engineering such technologies, although it was ultimately not established.
Yes, and why wasn't it established? Because the same wackadoos that wasted $22 million, Hal Puthoff, Bob Bigelow, Eric Davis, studying dino beavers, werewolves, space ghosts, and space monsters at Skinwalker Ranch. And let's not forget shape-shifting, shape-shifting skinwalkers at Skinwalker Ranch. Those same idiots are the people who tried to scam the government out of millions of dollars of more money for the Kona Blue program. And members of the Department of Defense realized that these people were wackadoos and denied them the ability to stand up that program. She should be aware of that. She should be aware that these same wackadoos that wasted $22 million studying Skinwalker Ranch and space ghosts and poltergeists at a ranch owned by Bigelow, the same wackadoos are the wackadoos that made the claims in the Kona Blue paperwork to set that up. She doesn't know that. So what we have is a problem of ignorance. Our elected officials are ignorant of where these claims are coming from, and the complete and total wackadoo, incredible claims being made by these wackadoos that are not credible claims because they are evidence-free, faith-based belief systems. She doesn't know this, and she's basing her opinions that this might be true off of complete and total lunatics who were telling her that alien space ghosts are murdering humans on Earth. I can't anymore. This woman is dumb as dirt. Lucky for her, she's easy on the eyes.
Can you clarify whether the Department of Energy has been involved in any such efforts, or
Not much
either
in the
historically
gray
or
area,
currently,
this
to
girl.
analyze reverse engineering materials from related to UAPs?
I have no knowledge of that.
Okay, there are several reports indicated frequent drone incursions over DOE nuclear facilities, including an incident on April 1st, 2021 at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, also known as LLNL. Can you detail the DOE's current security measures to prevent unauthorized drone activities or UAPs, and what steps are being taken to enhance these measures of frequencies of incidences?
Yeah,
I noticed she didn't even say anything. The secretary says, I have no knowledge of reverse engineering programs of UAPs. Maybe because she's more concerned with energy matters. That's what her primary responsibility is. Though this looks like the lady that's covering up alien back engineering programs, right? Come on.
we have a whole counter drone effort to make sure that all of our national security sites and our labs are protected from incursions.
Well, that's good to know. They at least have a plan for these things.
Drones, I'll just say, that are not authorized. So there's a whole series of protocols, probably not ripe for discussion in this public setting.
Correct. So I reviewed some unclassified materials from around the 40s and 50s, and so they weren't just being reported as drones back then. And I encourage you to look over those materials because I think that you guys should be upgrading that program to cover down on UAPs.
Yes, well, you need to spend more money, because I believe that some of those incursions were alien spaceships. Let me translate. That's just what she said. The government should spend more money to prevent the alien space monsters from, endangering our national security, or, being able to just fly with impunity over national security sites. It is absolutely ridiculous. This girl is completely and totally misinformed by UFO wackadoos. And now she wants to waste more American taxpayer time and resources for people that are making evidence-free claims. Great.
There have been documented sightings of metallic spheres over DOE facilities, if you want to call them drones in this instance, such as one report on April 30th, 2019 over LLNL. What investigations have been conducted in regards to these sightings, and what conclusions do you guys have about the nature and origins of these objects?
See, I have a problem with this, because if there truly was a drone incursion over Lanel, which is very secure, it's what a lot of people would describe as one of the most important labs or installations in the United States, then that's a matter of national security. That's not a matter to be discussed in an open hearing, right? It could be Chinese drones, it could be anything. Adversarial technology, spy balloons. That's not something that and this is another problem. These wackadoos are endangering national security, right? Tell us what's going on with these national security matters to prove it's not aliens. It's endangering national security. Even asking her this question in an open hearing, to me, is out of line. But what do I know? I'm not a senator or a elected official, so congressman, whatever. But okay.
I'm happy to follow up with you on that.
Okay, we'll be submitting also too for public record some questions after this, if you could please answer those. Considering the DOE's involvement in nuclear and sensitive research facilities, how does the DOE coordinate with agencies like the Department of Defense and AARO to investigate UAP sightings?
We obviously are teamed with the Department of Defense because of our national security and nuclear mission.
Are you able to cite any specific investigations or shared data analysis efforts?
I don't have information on that.
Okay. As of right now, again, we'll be submitting some questions for you after this. But
So it looks like the Department of Energy is not looking for space monsters.
hope that you guys can answer those in a timely fashion. And again, for those that might be tuning into this, I would encourage you to look at some of those unclassified materials, and we'll be happy to provide your office with that. I'll just follow up by one other question, I guess, to close it out. Does the DOE currently work with JSOC in order to handle security measures?
We work with all of the security entities around the federal government. We're part of an overall all-of-government effort on both cyber as well as national security.
Do you guys work with JSOC? Yes or no?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
And see, why did she ask that question? Because there's long been conspiracy theories that JSOC is one of the people that are hiding the alien and UFO secrets. And hey, the Department of Defense may have been working with the people that are covering up the aliens and the UFOs. But again, these are all baseless, evidence-free conspiracy theories, stories from wackadoos. And we can see right here, today is a perfect example of how these UFO promoting cult is influencing elected officials, influencing are members of Congress, members of the Senate, and members of the intelligence community, and more, members of the military. It's very disturbing to me, and I think this is a big story that almost everyone is missing. I'm going to take a moment to recognize some kind and generous people. I apologize. Sometimes I start these. For those unaware, we read and every single super chat. We thank every single supporter. Whether you send a PayPal or a super chat or whatever you do to support us, join our Patreon, become a channel member, we give you a shout out. I really appreciate every bit of support. So we make it a point to read and thank every single person. But sometimes I start these presentations and don't notice them. So I apologize for that. We'll rectify that right now. Wise Monkey, the wisest monkey I know. With a kind Wise Monkey, do you know that there is an ongoing debate in my house about me getting a monkey? My wife is completely and totally against this idea. She's even turned my son against the idea, telling him that if we get a monkey, the monkey will just throw shit at you. and that monkeys are nasty. Yeah, but I have long thought about getting a monkey, Wise Monkey. Wise Monkey says, Wise Monkey is so smart and handsome. Me rocks. Thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. We appreciate every bit of the support that we get. Thank you for being a longtime show supporter, and thanks for helping us too. We are praising the cash very well tonight, friends. That's just the beginning. A lot of kind and generous people donating while we began our presentation this evening. Lucas Bachman says, I don't always believe in UFOs, but when I do, they are either from space, the future, another dimension, or the hollow earth. Well, you've covered everything, right? What about the crypto-terrestrials, right? Or the future versions of us coming back in time to heal their degenerative DNA problems, right? Or they're from outer space, or they could be interdimensional, or yes, the hollow earth people, the crypto-terrestrial. Yes, thank you for helping us to praise the cash. All right, and wow, another one, Mike Larry. We've got Fern Ambulax with a kind and generous $9.99 says the great country western musician Roger Miller had a song about do walkie, do walkie, do walkie, do walkie, do walkie. I think he invented the term. God rest his soul. Well, that's good to know. And now for an ambulax, I'm going to have to look that up. Thank you for helping us too. Yes. And we've got just a couple of more here, and then we'll move on in our presentation. We've got Krister Wester, who's also a member. Thanks to all of you people who are also members and throw in a couple of bucks. The Black Vault showed a picture of a newly released photo of a B-21 by the Air Force. That looks like a UFO. You are correct. Let me see if I can find that, and we'll share it, because I agree with you. The minute I saw that, I said, gee, if you were to see that in the night sky especially, you would think that's an alien spacecraft. I think so anyway. And I saw that myself. My father was a very big fan of aviation. He was an aircraft mechanic by trade while he was in the military. And he imparted to me a love of all of these things. I grew up, yes, I found it. I grew up right, I spent summers right near McGuire Air Force Base, and we would go to the McGuire Air Force Show every year. And my father was big into aviation, and one of his favorite things was space planes. So we got Popular Mechanics and Popular Science. I saw many of Mark McCandlish's excellent illustrations of space planes and concept airplanes. But here is what you are referring to, Krister Wister, and you are absolutely right. This one, yeah, it still looks like an airplane, you know. This one looks like a flying saucer. That in the sky with the landing gear up, it sure looks like an alien spacecraft or a flying saucer. And here is another shot of it. Beautiful bird, beautiful plane. And thank you for reminding me that. I haven't shared that on my show. Probably should, just to educate people. This could be the reason that some people believe they're seeing alien spaceships, no visible means of propulsion. Look at this. No wings, no rotors, no visible means of propulsion, right? I think that could apply to this picture right here. It doesn't appear to have wings from this angle. No visible means of propulsion, no propellers, right? Very good candidate for something to be misidentified for an alien spaceship. Thank you, Krister Wester, for your kindness, generosity, and support, and for helping us to... All right, one more, and a big one. We saved the best for last. We want to thank Mike Larry. For those unaware, Mike Larry has bought a whole bunch of, he's gifted a whole bunch of Truth Seekers memberships, which, if you don't know this, when somebody gifts memberships, YouTube randomly gives them out to people who are subscribers to the channel, but not yet YouTube channel members. So if you haven't already, there's 50 free memberships right now. If you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button, and you might be able to get one of those free memberships. I can't thank you enough. Mike Larry, I've lost track. How many Truth Seekers membership? If you bought like a few hundred, I think Mike Larry has bought a few hundred, gifted a few hundred memberships to our audience here. And I can't thank you enough. Mike Larry has been making it rain up in this bitch. Thank you for helping us to praise the cash, Mike Larry. I appreciate your support immensely. Mike Larry, thank you so much. And I have some more to share with all of you. So recently, the Carl Nell thing, which I am just perplexed by, for those unaware, former high-ranking Air Force, is it Air Force, I think, or Army officer. Let me look it up just so that I'm correct. I lose track. There's so many of these people now. Yes, he's with the United States Army, not Air Force. Carl Nell recently did a public appearance in which he said, there is no doubt that aliens are visiting Earth. And when asked what his proof was, he mentioned some people, like a former Israeli space minister who was getting his information from a complete and total wackadoo in the form of Bill Cooper and Laura Eisenhower, two wackadoos. So what we see is this circle. I heard UFO Shane calls it a circle of confirmation, in which, you know, people think that people saying things is proof, especially if they're a high-ranking government official and they said it. Paul Hellyer was a high-ranking government official. However, Paul Hellyer believed anything he read in a UFO book was 100% true. And there are some so Carl Nell is asked, what's your proof of alien visitation on Earth? Is there's no doubt. What is your proof? And he mentioned Christopher Mellon, Dave Grush, and he also mentioned Paul Hellyer and this Israeli space minister. There's just one problem, especially with the space minister getting his information from complete and total word salad wackadoo Laura Eisenhower, who also believes that there's alien space vampires having battles, secret space battles within our solar system. So the Israeli space minister did an interview where he said things about the Galactic Federation and aliens visiting Earth, and everybody thought, wow, he's in a position to know. But he wasn't getting his information from his official duties as the Israeli space minister. He was getting his information from his granddaughter, who heard YouTube videos of Laura Eisenhower talking about secret deals, you know, that were Eisenhower signed a secret deal with the aliens. And it's one big game of telephone. It's one big circle jerk where one wackadoo says something and another wackadoo repeats it, and somehow that makes it true, especially if the second wackadoo is a high-ranking government official. So Nell's evidence that aliens are visiting Earth is extremely problematic. I'm going to share this from Stephen Greenstreet because I found this to be pretty funny. Carl Nell has replaced UFO whistleblower Dave Grush at the SALT conference. His 20-minute talk is titled Earth and Non-Human Intelligence. Last year, Nell prophesied that full disclosure of aliens will occur by 2030. Nell is connected to a group of dubious UFO activists that have been promoting false and unfounded stories about aliens and paranormal monsters. So that's the, you know, here's the thing. The UFO scam works because people don't dig deeper. If you just hear, well, this high-ranking Army officer, he worked for Northrop Grumman and Bell Labs. If anybody knows if they're back engineering alien technology, he's in a position to know, except he's not getting that information from his official duties, near as we can tell. He's getting that information from other wackadoos repeating wackadoo stories. And that's a problem. At least to me, that's a real problem. That should be a red flag that just because this man said it doesn't mean it's true. But again, we have this game of look at his resume. His resume is so impressive. Why would a guy with a resume that impressive lie? Well, maybe he's not lying. Maybe he's just repeating stories that he heard. Maybe he believes those stories to be true, but belief does not make a story true. Now, remember, Carl Nell cited Paul Hellyer, high-ranking Canadian defense minister, said aliens are real. But here's a problem. Here's where he's getting his information from. He's getting his information from Paul Hellyer. And I want to thank @KirkCollins579. I reposted this on Twitter. By the way, you should follow me on Twitter. Most of the things that we share here on the broadcast, I put on Twitter because I'm lazy. It makes it easier than doing a PowerPoint. And it's a way to share all this information freely with our audience here. Paul Hellyer is back, says Kirk Collins, in the UFO UAP conversation. Here's a flashback to 2015 from Jaime Maussan's Be Witness event, presenting the Roswell slides with Hellyer's endorsement. For those unaware, the Roswell slides was a complete and total Jaime Maussan hoax, one of over 50 hoaxes that Jaime Maussan has perpetrated against the public. And here's where it gets interesting. So remember, Carl Nell, who's a government wackadoo, former government wackadoo, is now trying to influence the media and the American people and the American elected officials to go look for space monsters that are murdering people on Earth. Remember, he fully endorsed Rush's claims as true and accurate. It's one big game it's one big circle jerk telephone game here. So when asked for proof, Paul Hellyer says there's no doubt aliens are visiting Earth. What is your proof of that? Well, Paul Hellyer said it's true. Paul Hellyer is a wackadoo who endorsed a complete and total 100% completely and totally fake hoax from Jaime Maussan. And here's what Paul Hellyer had to say about those Roswell slides. It will go down in history when these slides are shown that they will be the final nail in the coffin of the skeptics and of the liars who claim that Roswell was not real. And for those unaware, Jaime Maussan ran this scam. It was a pay-per-view scam in which he defrauded the public out of hundreds of thousands of dollars, claiming that a slide was of an alien creature recovered in the 1947 Roswell event. Turned out that that picture was actually of a mummified boy from a museum. That's what it actually was. We've covered it extensively here. So now we see the problem with this circle of confirmation. Every one of these people are living in this echo chamber. They do not dig beneath the surface of the claims being made. Carl Nell just says, well, Paul Hellyer, he's a high-ranking Canadian defense minister, and he said the aliens are visiting Earth, so it must be true. But here we see that Paul Hellyer is willing to believe Jaime Maussan, of all people. No, but I know so many, even true believers, that know Jaime Maussan is full of shit, and everything Jaime Maussan pushes is fake, including these Mexican alien mummies that he's pushed back out again. That's another game of UFO grifter whack-a-mole. Those alien mummies were debunked years ago. He just pulls them back out. Now he's finding more of them, right? So there's a real problem with Carl Nell already, because he's asked for proof that aliens are visiting Earth and why he's so sure. Well, Paul Hellyer said it. Paul Hellyer is a complete and total wackadoo. And as if you needed more evidence of Paul Hellyer being a complete and total wackadoo, I found a wonderful interview with him from German television, of all things. Well, I didn't find it. This person, 1 second. Chris Rutkowski actually is the person that shared this in this thread. So we're going to cite fair use, and we're going to share that. Wise Monkey had to send another one because you misspelled the first one. Wise Monkey is so smart and handsome. He rocks. Kind and generous. $1.99, £1.99. Thanks for helping us too.
Raise the cash, raise the cash, raise the cash.
And we've got another one here. Kind and generous. Thomas Robinson with a kind and generous £5. Says protecting aliens since 1947. Yes, we've got to protect the aliens, Thomas Robinson. Thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. And you too, Wise Monkey, both of you longtime show supporters. Thanks for helping us to praise the cash.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
Okay, now I saved probably the best part of the presentation for last, because this is a laughable example of the telephone game, or it's been described as Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick as the self-licking ice cream cone. I call it the UFO circle jerk. Other people have called it the circle of confirmation. All these people just confirm and reinforce their evidence-free belief systems. And this guy said it, so it must be true. But then you start examining some of the other things that that person said. And by the way, there's a false equivocation that really takes place, or false equivalency, where people think, well, if multiple people are saying the same thing and there's a high likelihood it's true. No, it just means multiple people are saying the same thing. It doesn't mean each of them are telling you the truth, or that whatever each of these people are saying is true. But that's a story for another time. So we're going to cite fair use. This is a transformative work. This is covered under fair use and allowable by law. We're going to be educating the public with this video. So remember, everybody's so excited because Carl Nell confirmed that aliens are visiting Earth. And what's his proof for it? This guy is his proof, Paul Hellyer. But we're going to see that Paul Hellyer is literally repeating, he's literally repeating stories from stolen valor, fake Air Force officers who made a living for decades selling books on tall white aliens. That's right. In this video, Paul Hellyer starts telling stories from Charles Hall, the originator of the tall white alien mythology, who we have covered extensively here, was a stolen valor fraud. His entire story starts with, when I was in the Air Force, I saw aliens. And then you go and dig into his background and you find out he was never in the Air Force. And now Canadian Defense Minister Paul Hellyer is repeating stories from that complete and total fraud as if they're 100% true. You know why? Because none of these people do any research. If it sounds good to them, they run with it. None of these people dig deeper into the claims being made. None of these people demand evidence. They all have no standards of evidence whatsoever. As for me, if somebody says, when I was in the Air Force, I saw aliens, the first thing I'm going to do is verify their military credentials. And it didn't take very long when we started digging into Charles Hall to figure out he was never in the Air Force. Therefore, that story has no value, and it is a fake story told by a fake Air Force officer. Carl Nell is saying, aliens are visiting Earth, and my proof it's true is because Paul Hellyer believed it. But now we're going to see some of the other things that Paul Hellyer believed, and maybe we're going to knock down that disclosure boner you got yesterday, you dumb dickheads. All right, let's get into this. Are we getting the point that it's a lot of wackadoos repeating other wackadoo stories yet? I'm going to fast forward that because there's probably copyrighted music there.
In his retirement that he says he made a life-changing discovery. He became the first cabinet-level politician
book the day after Roswell. Well, I apologize. I don't know what happened. They couldn't get our mouse today, so they went after other things. So I apologize. I don't know when it cut off. This is a perfect example of, and I don't know what happened. 1 second. Okay, it appears that we are okay now. I really don't know what that was about. It was the Men in Black. Yes, there is there's some black Broncos outside my house right now shooting energy weapons at our streaming computer. Admiral Rascal says Linda Moulton Hale got Steven. Yeah. And I'm sorry about it, Dawn. It was frozen. All right. So what I was saying, I don't know when I got cut off. This video is proof that my theory that UFO promoting wackadoos are influencing elected officials and high-ranking government officials. Paul Hellyer is the perfect example of that. He was the Canadian defense minister. But it's important to note that this is all a shell game. UFO promoters say, oh, well, a high-ranking Canadian defense minister, he said the aliens are visiting Earth. But it's important to note that Paul Hellyer did not get that information from his time as the Canadian defense minister, as many people would have you believe, but rather got his information from UFO wackadoos and scammers like Charles Hall, who was a fake Air Force officer who told the story of the tall white aliens. Now we're going to see in this interview, Paul Hellyer is essentially co-signing a complete and total frauds fake stories about tall white aliens, even repeating the fake alien hucksters' stories of tall white aliens in media interviews, and we're going to see that here. I'll try to keep a more careful watch on things here as well, in case the Men in Black get to stream again.
Honorable Paul Hellyer, former Minister of Defense of Canada, and he believes that life forms from space exist present on Earth. It's great to have you with us on our show. Why do you say that UFOs are as real as the airplanes flying over our heads?
Well, because I know that they are. They've been, as a matter of fact, they've been visiting our planet for thousands of years. And one of the cases that would interest you most, if you give me 2 or 3 minutes to answer, is during the Cold War, 1961, there were about 50 UFOs in formation flying south from Russia to across Europe. And the Supreme Allied Commander was very concerned and about ready to press the panic button when they turned around and went back over the North Pole. So they decided to do an investigation, and they investigated for 3 years. And they decided that with absolute certainty that 4 different species at least, had been visiting this planet for thousands of years. So that's...
and where is he getting that from? He's getting that from a UFO book, not from his official duties.
We have a long history of UFOs, and of course, there's been a lot more activity in the last few decades since we invented the atomic bomb. And they're very concerned about that and the fact that we might use it again. And because the whole cosmos is a unity, and it affects not just us, but other people in the cosmos, they're very much afraid that we might be stupid enough to start using atomic weapons again. And this would be very bad for us and for them as well.
And he is now repeating a long-held trope in UFO mythology, that the aliens are concerned about our use of nuclear weapons and us destroying our planet here. This is directly from UFO mythology. He's not basing this on anything he learned during his time as the Canadian defense minister. He's basing this on UFO mythology, stories.
So no serious scientist has ever publicly confirmed evidence of an encounter with extraterrestrials. Why would scientists not confirm the facts if they exist?
I'm afraid they must go out of their way not to find out. Because if they did, even 10%
it's a cover-up.
of the amount of research I've done in the last 8 years, they would be as convinced as I am. I mean, they could do it even faster.
Yes, and Mr. Hellyer's idea of research is reading UFO books from people like Charles Hall, from people like Michael Salla, William Tompkins. He believed everything he read in a book was 100% true. And I have more examples of that, which maybe we'll put together a super clip of all of his wacky repeating of stories from books being written by complete and total wackadoos that are not credible at all. And this is a perfect example of a government official being influenced by these UFO promoters. He started reading UFO books. He believed everything in the books, including The Day After Roswell, was 100% true, including Charles Hall and the tall white alien stories were 100% true. And we certainly know that both of those stories were completely and totally fake. History proves that The Day After Roswell was completely and totally a fake narrative, for-profit fake narrative. They're still selling the book. People who were involved in the creation of things like fiber optics and integrated circuits and lasers came out against that book and said that it was all fairy tales. And in the case of the Charles Hall tall white alien stories, we know the stories are fake because the whole story begins with when I was in the Air Force. We proved he was never in the Air Force. Therefore, Paul Hellyer is believing, not just believing, but repeating completely and totally fake stories that he read in UFO books on media.
Might take them a little longer when they didn't have a military background, but there are so many wonderful books that tell these stories, and they've been
it's as loud as it's going to go. Sorry,
sightings have been authenticated by more than one witness, and also by radar, and they have landed in various places around the world, including Russia. There's a famous case there. I can't remember the name of the place, but it was.
They've been authenticated on radar. I wonder what he's basing that on.
Widely reported at the time. A man wrote a book about it.
And there you go. A man wrote a book about it. Therefore, it must be true. So what we see is already Carl Nell is saying the aliens are visiting Earth. And my proof for it is that Paul Hellyer said it's true. Where did Paul Hellyer get his information from? UFO books. This is one big circle jerk.
And then the French bought the book rights so that it wouldn't be circulated around. There's just so much evidence. If anybody will take the time off to do a little bit of research and study. But people just are, some people are interested and will take the time, and the others just say, oh, it's just fantasy. Mm-hmm. But since I've been public on this subject, I get, probably 3 or 4 emails a week from all over the world, from people who have actually witnessed sightings. And some of them who have actually been on the ships, and some of them who have actually been transported to another planet. And so this information.
So now he's saying that he's getting emails from Wackadoos saying that they were taken aboard ships and transported. Some of them were transported to another planet. So that must be true because somebody sent me an email. Do you see how weak these people are? Like he has no standards of evidence. Somebody sent me an email. They went aboard a spaceship, so it must be true. Somebody sent me an email that they were transported to another planet, so it must be true. That's his evidence. Some wackadoo sent him an email. And by the way, I get emails like that all the time. You can't just accept the stories people tell you in an email as true and accurate.
Is not, it is top secret in a way that the governments aren't talking about it. But if you listen to the whistleblowers, and the people who have worked in the industry and who know what is going on, there is just a lot of information out there, and it doesn't take very long to get your hands on it.
But see, the problem is
that
some
just
people
buy a
who
book,
report UFO
buy a UFO book.
and alien abductions have been shown to make things up and to make things up to be famous, to make money, or just for a prank. How do we tell fiction from a fact?
Well, you have to spend a lot of time trying to find. We used to say separating the wheat from the chaff, and takes a lot of effort.
And that term, I believe, came from George Knapp. So that shows he's a George Knapp fan. Right? One big circle jerk, friends.
When I was minister, I got sighting reports And when we checked them out, about 80%, about 8 out of 10, were not real. They were sites of Venus or plasma, or a dozen other
You're
things.
correct. That's another one of
But
his
there were
sources.
15 to
Grant
20%
Cameron.
for which there was no explanation, and they were the genuine unidentified flying objects. These things go way back. One of the conferences I went to was in Las Vegas. Was
he does, Chuck
promoted
Mann,
by
yes.
a chap who had written a book about crashes. And there were dozens and dozens and dozens of them, and many of them very, very well authenticated. So
No, now he's talking about Leonard Stringfield's book, which was all anonymous sources for the crash book. He's talking about Leonard Stringfield, who wrote a book about all of these UFO crashes, but he couldn't share even one of the sources of the stories. Again, Paul Hellyer had no standards of evidence whatsoever.
that it would be impossible to read all of that evidence and not to come to the conclusion that these...
This guy's all chaff and no wheat.
Have you
Yes.
ever had your own encounter with aliens?
Not encounter with aliens. No, I have seen a UFO about...
yeah, I mean, he seems like a nice guy. I mean,
Toronto,
but no standards of evidence.
Where I have a cottage. And 2 years ago, last Canadian Thanksgiving, which is October, my wife decided she wanted to go out and look at the stars. So I'm not much of a night man, but I put on my cap and went out with her. And she looked into the eastern sky.
Yes, people are complaining about the audio, and I apologize. This is from Russian television, so I don't know.
Sky, and said, there's a star. And I turned around the other way, and I said, oh, there's a much brighter one over here. And she looked, and it was. And we watched it until our necks almost broke for about 20 minutes. And it was definitely a UFO, because it could change position in the sky by 3 or 4 degrees in 3 or 4 seconds. And I checked out, there were no satellites that could do that. The space station wasn't going by, and it isn't able to move that fast anyway.
So he's convinced it was aliens because he couldn't identify it.
It was the real thing. And 2 days later, I went down on the dock, got a comfortable chair, and watched it came back almost to the same spot and entertained me for as long as I could take it. And then I went back to the cottage. But it was very interesting because it would drop down in the sky.
No, that was a Canadian,
back up,
a Canadian
across a few
member of
degrees
Parliament, Stormcrow.
and do a circle and come back at a speed, but just astronomical speeds. As you know, they travel very, very fast.
So does it just look like a falling star that falls really quickly and then rises again? What does it look like?
Well, it just looked like a star.
Yep, he got conned into jumping into the lunatic fringe. Yes.
Right. And I don't know if you're a person who has ever read the Bible or not, but I think the Star of Bethlehem is one of God's flying saucers.
Mm-hmm. But you also tell me
the Star
that
of Bethlehem was a flying
emails,
saucer now.
5 emails a week, and they've actually been abducted, or they have encounters with the aliens. Do they actually tell you what these aliens look like? I mean, everyone's interested. How would I know if I see an alien and if he abducts me?
Well, you have the first question you have to ask is how many species are there? And I used to think there were between 2 and 12. And Apollo astronaut Edgar Mitchell, who came to Toronto a few years ago and had dinner with us, agreed there was somewhere between 2 and 12. But the latest reports that I've been getting.
Yeah, and what is their evidence for? Listen, if somebody asks a question like how many alien species are visiting Earth, and they can tell you, they're probably full of shit. How do you know how many alien species are visiting Earth? It's just one big circle jerk. Well, this other guy told me that there's between 2 and 12 alien species visiting Earth, so I'm going to go with that. It's just ridiculous.
From various sources are that there are about 80 different species, and some of them look just like us, and they could walk down the street and you wouldn't know if you ran, walk past one. And they're what we call the Nordic blondes, and
or the tall whites. Tall whites.
who were actually working with the United States Air Force in Nevada, they're able to get away with that. They had
Here he is. Remember, this is Carl Nell's proof that aliens are visiting Earth. A former, pardon me, a former Canadian defense minister who was repeating the complete and total 100% provably false claims of a UFO grifter that pretended that he was in the Air Force to sell a book about aliens. And here he is on television repeating those claims as 100% real and true. So Nell's evidence that aliens are visiting Earth is this wackadoo who is repeating 100% provably fake alien stories from grifters. Welcome to the circle jerk, friends.
a couple of their ladies dressed as nuns went into Las Vegas to shop, and they weren't detected. And I have a friend who saw one of the men walking along the street, and somebody who would recognize
This is Charles Hall stories
that they were different, and he did. So there are those kind, and then there are the short grays, as they're called, and they're the ones that you see in most of the cartoons. They're have very slim arms and legs, and they're very short, just a little over 5 feet.
Yes, he is, Amy Collins, which means he has no standards of evidence. He did no investigation. He just believed Charles Hall.
But they're different species, so you have to know that they're different species, and it's and know that they're
Could
all
be,
different.
Patty.
So
So
if you saw the short gray, if you saw the short grays, you'd certainly know that there was something up that you'd never seen before. But if you saw one of the Nordic blondes, well, you'd probably say, "Oh, I wonder if she's from Denmark or somewhere,"
So this species that you're describing, are they all different in terms of nice and mean? Are some of them nice and benevolent? Are others nasty? Or how are they? Are they good to people on Earth, or are they here to harm them?
The evil aliens.
It's a difficult question to answer because they have different agendas. And maybe all of us on Earth should have the same agenda, but you couldn't say maybe that Russia and China and the United States.
That's a very good point. And look, now they're showing the fake Linda Moulton Hale Area 51 alien picture during an interview. And Liz G, thanks for being a member, makes a very good point. What has Nell done referring to this guy as data? This guy is Carl Nell's data that proves that aliens are real. A guy who is on a television show repeating stories that he got from complete and total UFO fraud grifters who pretended to be in the Air Force to sell a book about aliens. And again, he's repeating these stories as if they're 100% true.
It's all had the same agenda at every turn because they don't. And I would say that nearly all are benign, they're benevolent, they want to help us.
Yeah, I dropped in there and I heard a little bit of that, William.
And that's one of the things I'm investigating at the moment, is to see who they are and what they're up to and what their agendas really are.
All right, we're talking to Paul Hellyer, former Canadian Minister of Defense, who says extraterrestrial life forms exist and are present on Earth. We'll talk more about what they are and why they're here after a short break. Stay with us. And we're back with Paul Hellyer, former Canadian Minister of Defense, to talk about extraterrestrial life forms. Great to have you back. So, these extraterrestrial creatures, where do they come
Stormcrow
from?
says she wants a nasty alien.
Here to Earth?
They come from various places. For a long while, I only knew about ones who came from different star systems. The Pleiades and Reta Reticula and several other star systems. But in the last few...
And where is he getting that? From UFO mythology. Not from his official duties as the Canadian Space or the Canadian Defense Minister. All Paul Hellyer has done in this interview is repeat UFO mythology that he got from UFO grifter books so far. And remember, this is Carl Nell's data that proves aliens are visiting Earth, that this guy said so.
2 months, I have met people who have made me aware of that there are some in our star system, and that there are actually extraterrestrials who live on a planet called Andromeda.
Oh my God,
which is one of the
Andromeda.
moons of Saturn, and that there are others on Venus. And
Oh my
some
God.
on Mars.
Aliens on Venus,
And,
aliens on Mars.
that,
Very credible source of information, Carl Nell.
Interacting between themselves, I suspect that they are, because there is what is called a federation of these people.
Here we are, the Galactic Federation,
For example, one of
friends.
the rules is that they don't interfere in our affairs unless they're invited to. And that's one of the reasons probably that we haven't seen more of them until very recently. And so
But what do you mean? There are a lot of people who want to interact
They-
with them. There are a lot of people who actually want to see them and know who they are. What they need a special invitation to interact with us? What does it mean? They don't want to interfere. into our
Andromeda,
affairs?
is that the next YouTube?
Well, they don't want to tell
Yes,
us how
aliens
to
on
affairs.
Venus.
They
Now
have
he's
accepted the fact that
repeating
it's our
like
planet, and that we
50s
have the right to
contactee
run it.
claims.
But they're very, very concerned. They don't think we're good stewards of our planet.
This guy's more
And
fried than a
we're
bucket of
cutting-
KFC,
we're
says
cutting the
Ice
forest,
Kenny.
and we're
Thanks for being a
polluting
member.
our rivers
Great
and our
comment.
lakes, and we're dumping sewage in the oceans.
He's about to
And
have a
we're doing
stroke.
all sorts of things which are not what good stewards of their homes should be doing. And they don't like that, and they've made it very clear. And as a matter of fact, they have given us a warning.
How?
And this has come from more than one source.
How have they made it clear?
well,
What have they done?
That they have talked to people. One of the chaps I talked to about a month ago was interacting with them in 1974, he and his brother in Peru. And they were taken to Andromeda.
Another wackadoo with no evidence. He's repeating evidence-free claims from
told,
wackadoos.
what the people there think, and that we're really wrecking our planet. And in fact, that something dreadful is going to happen to it if we don't smarten up and change our ways. We spend too much time fighting each other. We spend too much money on military
I agree, William
expenditures,
Runner.
and not enough on feeding the poor and looking after the homeless and the sick. And that we are
You can't invite them in your house like a
waters and our air.
vampire. Yes, good
And
point.
we're playing around with these exotic weapons, thermonuclear weapons and atomic weapons, which have such a devastating effect both on our Earth and on
Everything
other
he's
areas of
saying
the
is
cosmos.
all UFO
And,
mythology.
and
Nothing
they don't like
original,
that.
nothing
And
new.
that's the reason they would like to work
Just
with
repeated
us
claims of
and
wackadoos.
teach us better ways, but only
Objection,
I think,
hearsay.
with our consent.
Yes.
And they work through individuals, and they try and pick out individuals who won't be frightened to death of them, because they can give you quite a fright. One of the cases I'm familiar with was the tall whites in
That's
Nevada,
interesting, Craig William.
where the United States Airmen working with them, were just frightened to death of them. And one, Charles Hall, rescued the daughter of one of the high up.
There, he mentions
people,
Charles Hall by
tall
name.
whites, and as a result became very good friends with the mother. And as soon as they could trust each other, they had a wonderful relationship.
There we have it. Carl Nell is saying aliens are visiting Earth. What's your proof of that? Oh, Paul Hellyer said that aliens are visiting Earth. And what's Paul Hellyer's proof that aliens are visiting Earth? Charles Hall, a fake Air Force officer that was never in the Air Force, that claimed he met aliens during his Air Force service that he never did. This man has no standards of evidence. He is simply repeating things from UFO grifter books. And in the case of Charles Hall is a complete and total stolen valor fraud. He pretended to be an Air Force officer to sell a fake book about aliens. And this guy bought it hook, line, and sinker. And Carl Nell is basing his belief that aliens are visiting Earth based on this guy, who has no standards of evidence and is on a television show repeating stories from a fake Air Force officer grifter who sold books for decades based on his fake claims of military service that we here have proven never took place.
And he wrote a book about it. It's called Millennium
Hospitality.
millennial hospitality. And it tells you how you go through these stages of being scared out of your wits. But then when you establish a trust and a working relationship, why you can have the same relationship, same kind of relationship that you would have with someone here on Earth.
But here's what I'm thinking. If you're outing their presence, which is clearly not what they want since they're hiding, why aren't they so afraid of, why aren't you afraid of repercussions? Because you're obviously stating that they're here among us, and you're telling me all these species that exist.
No, he didn't.
Among us, and I'm not afraid because in most cases, well, as far
I don't
as
think
technology is concerned, they're light years ahead of us. And we have learned a lot of things from them. A lot of the things that we use today, we got from them, lead lights and microchips. And
here he's repeating the false claims of Colonel Corso and the now completely discredited book, The Day After Roswell. Here he's claiming that we got integrated circuits. It's all from the Day After Roswell book. And he's repeating that as if this is 100% fact. Oh, we got Kevlar and lead lights and lasers and integrated circuits from the crash retrieval alien technology at Roswell. That book is a complete and total fairy tale. It's been proven over and over and over again. Humans invented those things. We didn't get them from aliens. So again, Carl Nell, I'm just going to keep hammering this point. He's asked, what's the best evidence you have that aliens are visiting Earth? His best evidence, Carl Nell said, is that Paul Hellyer believed it. But here we see Paul Hellyer is repeating completely and totally debunked fake stories from UFO wackadoo grifter scammers. There's a problem with Carl Nell citing this guy. And again, Paul Hellyer, he just believed anything he read in a book was true. He also believed that the Roswell slides were real. This is not a credible source of information. This is a terrible source of information that proves Carl Nell is probably another true believing wackadoo with no standards of evidence, repeating this endless pattern of repeating these stories and these mythologies over and over and over again. The problem is that many of these stories are completely and totally provably fake. He has just sat here repeating several completely and totally provably fake stories from the land of UFO make-believe.
Kevlar vests.
Oh, yeah.
And, all
Day After Roswell.
We got from their technology, and we could get a lot more too, especially in the fields of medicine and agriculture, if we would go about it peacefully. But I think maybe some of our people are more interested in getting their military technology, and I think that's wrong. I think that's wrong-headed, and that's one of the things.
Bring your own Coke, more like, okay,
because we're going to have to work together.
Sniff.
Talking about
all of us, everywhere on the planet.
You mentioned military technology and swapping technologies and barters between aliens and people in American government. I want to ask you, as a former Minister of Defense of Canada, is interstellar war a possibility? Should we be creating a Star Wars?
The audio on this is terrible. There's like a phone ringing in the background. What the Jesus?
Well, I think it's a possibility, but it's a possibility, especially if we shoot down every UFO that comes in our airspace without asking who they are or what they want.
Troll.
And right from the beginning, we started scrambling planes and trying to shoot them down, but their technology was superior enough that we weren't able to get away with it. Certainly not for a long while. And during that period of time,
bring your own bison. He's not sharing.
Wanted to. So I think we have to. Rather than develop our own Star Wars to protect ourselves against them, that we should.
I agree, Dawn. Yeah, it is astonishing.
Species who are the vast majority, and work together, and rely largely on them, of course, and cooperate so that we would be contributing something at the same time. But I don't think there's any any point in us.
Yeah, we wouldn't have
developing
things like Wi-Fi or
a
computers,
galactic force
Stormcrow. Thanks for being a member.
would tempt us to go out on our own and get into mischief, which is one of the things I think some of them are concerned about.
But what do you expect to happen if people start to believe in alien existence on Earth? Because things are definitely going to change.
You think?
Our lives aren't going to be the same anymore.
Well, I hope that's the case. I hope that's the case. And I'm all for full disclosure.
Yeah, 40 and back is
And
next.
I'm going to push very hard for full disclosure in the book I'm writing. And
Aliens invented
reasons for
Mylar
it,
party balloons. Lou
things that
Elizondo
we
has
really
the video
have to
evidence.
know and have a right to know, and that our future.
He will take a nap
here,
after this. Sorry, not
all
sorry.
of the species in the world, are potentially at risk if we don't figure out what's going on.
I agree,
and
Sandra.
work
Yeah.
Together to try and make life.
He believed every book he read was
amenable
true.
for all of us,
But it's
and to work with our neighbors from other planets as well.
But still, like, I'm thinking to myself, if they've been here for such a long time, as you say, and they're interested in helping humanity, as you say, why is our world such a mess? I mean, if you want to help someone, you just help someone. You don't wait that someone to invite you to help that someone, no?
Well, I don't, it's something that I think parents can sometimes say to their children, this is what you should do. But that doesn't mean the children are going to do it, does it? Because the
notice the
cosmos is
excuses
based on free choice,
right? And by the way,
and we're
there's always an excuse, right? There's some perfect examples of that. Like, I can't remember who it was. Somebody that I interviewed who claimed to be in contact with benevolent extraterrestrials. I said, well, why won't they help us? Like, can we get, I have an autistic son, which is a terrible thing to suffer through for him and for our whole family. Can we get a cure for autism? Oh, they can't interfere, right? I think it was Anjali. There's always an excuse when you press them for, like, logically, oh, the aliens are our space brothers. Why don't they give us a cure for cancer? Why don't they give us free energy? Why don't they help us? Oh, they can't interfere.
We're given the option of making mistakes, of making wrong choices. And I guess what bothers some of us is we've made too many wrong choices.
Thanks, Stormy. Glad you're here. Nice to see you here.
Choices.
Welcome.
So we're going to have to start switching our priorities.
Good.
And stop.
And I hate to speak ill of the dead, but this is important to know.
Or to dominate each other, and spending a lot more time on how to help each other to have a better life and a more just society. And
it was you're right. I think maybe it was Sarah Adams, Frank. You're right.
Healthcare is better, and where the food distribution is better, and where the air is cleaner and the water is cleaner, and all of those things that are waiting to be done.
Alien utopia.
We just get together and row, as we say, rowboat, row in the right direction, the same direction. And it's possible, but it's a tall order, and so far we haven't done it. My thesis will be that we have to do it, and we have to start doing it right away.
Thank you so much for this interesting interview and insight on extraterrestrial life. That was Paul Hellyer, former Canadian Minister of Defense. He says aliens exist and live among us on Earth. That's all the time we have for today. I will see you in the next edition of Sophie & Co.
So that's it. That's what I have to share with you about Paul Hellyer. Now, we're going to talk for a moment about how the UFO scam works. How many people will actually investigate? When Carl Nell says, well, the former Canadian Minister of Defense believed aliens were visiting Earth, so that proves it's true. How many people will actually investigate Paul Hellyer and go and find these interviews and look at what he's saying? And how many people will be able to connect the dots and show you that what Paul Hellyer is doing here is repeating the false claims of UFO grifters who are for profit, scamming the public with completely and totally fake stories? How many people are going to do that? Versus how many people will simply hear the former Canadian minister, head of defense, of the defense ministry, said that aliens are visiting Earth. you know, it's a subtle psychological thing, but I think a lot of people would hear that and think he must have gotten to the secrets that the Canadian government knows about the aliens while he was the defense minister. But that's not the case. All of Paul Hellyer's beliefs and information were based on books being sold to him by complete and total lunatic frauds selling fake stories. He believed the day after Roswell. He believed in Charles Hall and the tall white aliens, which again came from a guy who pretended to be in the Air Force to sell a book about aliens. That was his scam. If I say I was in the Air Force, people will think I'm credible and more people will buy my book of fake stories. Paul Hellyer bought those lies, those evidence-free fake stories. He bought them hook, line, and sinker. He believed, I truly believe that Mr. Hellyer believed that if it was written in a book that he read, it was true. He also cited Leonard Stringfield as proof. And I'll admit the Leonard Stringfield material is very interesting until you stop to consider that it's all based on anonymous sources, over 100 or hundreds of anonymous sources. For all we know, Leonard Stringfield just made up that entire body of work, and his sources were imaginary. They didn't exist. And by the way, that book is still available on Amazon, and I think it's like $200 for the Len Stringfield alien, UFO crashes book. I just can't believe that people are getting so excited about Carl Nell said that aliens are visiting Earth. And what's your proof? Oh, well, Paul Hellyer said it. I'm just going to keep hammering this point. You cannot just take anything these people say at face value. You have to dig a little deeper. And tonight, I have shown you a perfect example of how the UFO scam works on a psychological level. On a psychological level, one high-ranking Army officer says aliens are visiting Earth, and I know it's true without a doubt. Great. How do you know it's true? Well, I know it's true because Paul Hellyer believed it, and he was the Canadian head of the Ministry of Defense for Canada. But then when we actually look into the person he's claiming he's getting his evidence from, it's one big circle jerk of bullshittery, really. But most people, like I said, just hearing, well, we've got a high-ranking military officer from the United States, and he says aliens are visiting Earth, and there's no doubt about it. And he knows that because the former head of the Canadian Ministry of Defense believed it. It sounds good. It sounds believable. It sounds very credible. These two high-ranking government officials both saying aliens are visiting Earth. But it's the wackadoo prover maneuver. And that is when one wackadoo says some out-of-this-world outrageous claim like aliens are visiting Earth, and his evidence for it is another wackadoo said it. Then we get to Paul Hellyer, and we start to pick apart where he's getting his information from, and it turns out Paul Hellyer is getting his information from wackadoos, other wackadoos. It's all just one big wackadoo circle jerk of evidence-free stories, in some cases stories that are completely and totally provably fake and hoaxes. Paul Hellyer believed the Roswell slides were real. He believed the tall white aliens were real. He believed in the Galactic Federation and the secret space program, and Corey Goode and Michael Sala's information was true and accurate, which just goes to show you that just because somebody is just because somebody is a high-ranking government official doesn't mean that they are immune to being taken in and getting stuck down this rabbit hole and believing it's all true. It happens to many, many people. Anthony M. says, disappointing how a thread of truth can become a ball of BS. That's actually very, very good. Go Kicks Rocks is here with a kind and generous $5 super chat. Says, wish I had the energy to contribute. It's tiring. Well, I think tonight was a good effort, Jess, Go Kick Rocks, because, like I said, most people are not going to dig into Carl Nell's claims that his proof is Paul Hellyer said it's true, because then you have to dig into Paul Hellyer, and then you have to know that where he's getting his information from is completely and totally not a credible source of information. And I love how people just assume that Paul Hellyer must have got the information about the aliens while he was working as the Canadian Defense Minister. No, he didn't. He got it from complete and total UFO fraud wackadoos selling books. Books filled with provably 100% fake stories, which he then repeated, which is now the basis on which Carl Nell has no doubt aliens are visiting Earth. Once you start peeling back these layers of deception, like I said, I'm going to keep harping on this point. You cannot take anything any of these people say at face value. You have to investigate it. And quite honestly, I feel very fortunate because I don't think there's many people who could have connected these dots for you all. But I promise you, if you thoroughly investigate the book, The Day After Roswell, and I have, you will come to the conclusion that that book is a complete and total work of fiction. All the claims made in the book, none of which can be corroborated. It's a single source story, but many of the historical claims made in the book can be picked apart by pure history, by real science. And you know, when you look into the claims in the book, you suddenly realize, oh, this is just a story. And history refutes all of what Colonel Corso said. Many people have debunked that book as a complete and total work of fiction. And then I also happen to do quite a deep dive. You may be familiar with it here. We've done quite a deep dive on Charles Hall. And we went to get his military records. I even got a specialist in military records to help me because I didn't want to accuse somebody of lying about their military service unless it was 100% true. Charles Hall was never in the United States Air Force. Full stop. So that story that Paul Hellyer is repeating is a complete and total, not a credible source. And I'm fortunate that I, you know, like I said, there's a real problem here where people don't dig into the history, where people aren't aware that you have to dig and dig and dig to get to the real truth. And tonight, and thank you, Go Kick Rocks, for your kindness, generosity, and support. We appreciate you. Thanks for appreciating us and helping us to praise the cash.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
All right. So I feel like tonight was a good night because I'm one, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I was intimately familiar with Paul Hellyer. And I remember when Paul Hellyer first started making the rounds and doing, interviews and podcasts, and everybody got so excited. Oh my God, a Canadian defense minister said aliens are visiting Earth. And then I started listening to his interviews and realized that where he was getting his information from were just UFO books. He didn't have any information that he got from the Canadian Defense Ministry. It came from UFO fraudsters. That's where he got his information from and repeated ad nauseum. And I think it's very unfortunate that more people like me are not able to connect these dots. We have to go from Carl Nell to Paul Hellyer. Then we go from Paul Hellyer to Charles Hall being a complete and total fraud, right? He even named him in that interview. So we know that's where he's getting this information from, a complete and total fraud. It's one big circle of bullshittery. That's what it is. And this thing has been described as a self-licking ice cream cone. I call what they do the wackadoo prover maneuver. One wackadoo's backing up another wackadoo who's repeating other wackadoo stories. It's a big Ferris wheel of wackadoos telling each other stories, most of which have no evidence or are provably fake. And it's unfortunate that so many people are getting so excited about Nell when he is citing this level of stupidity as his proof that, without a doubt, aliens are visiting Earth. And again, I don't believe that Carl Nell is basing his claims on anything he saw in the Army. He's basing his claims on stories people told him, who based their claims on stories that other wackadoos told them. It's one big circle jerk of wackadoos, jerking each other off, telling each other alien stories. Oh my God, oh, the aliens are visiting Earth. I'm getting a stiffy. I'm getting such a disclosure boner. Oh my God, tell me more about the Galactic Federation and the secret space wars and the secret Mars missions. And this is so stupid. But this is where we're at. And this is where we find ourselves. And this works because nobody digs deeper. They hear high-ranking Army officer says aliens are visiting Earth without a doubt. And then he said he knows it's true because the Canadian defense minister said aliens are visiting Earth. Then you start digging, and it's just such a disappointment. What a big letdown to find out that this is all one big circle jerk of bullshit. All right. So I think that will conclude our presentation, but I've got a little more time to share with you. We will be doing some incredible deep dives this weekend. And I got a nasty message from somebody that said something like, nobody cares about your reruns. But all I have to say in my defense is when thousands of people show up to see you do a rerun, somebody cares. So we're going to keep doing them. And these deep dives this weekend will be the longest and most detailed yet. We've got something like 10 or 11 hours each one is. There's one on the Skinwalker scam. There's one on George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell, and there's one on Bob Lazar. What we have done is compiled all of this incredible information that we share. By the way, I've started to realize that information is really the most important aspect of our show. People come here to be educated, to be entertained for sure, and we try to make it entertaining for you, but people come to be educated. And a lot of the information that we have here, you won't get anywhere else. Somebody just slagged me because some UFO circle jerk show has twice my subscribers. But I really don't care if you have twice my subscribers and you got twice my subscribers by lying to your audience on a goddamn daily basis. Suck a dick. It doesn't, it's like growing up in my neighborhood when I was a kid. There was a lot of shady people and criminals. I mean, it was a rough area. So, every once in a while, some kid in the neighborhood when we were teenagers would suddenly have a brand new IROC or something, but we knew that he was getting that money from selling crack. So no, I wasn't jealous of the guy with the sports car because he cheated to get it. He was selling crack, So I'm not jealous of somebody with more subscribers than me when they got there by lying to their audience on an almost daily basis. Terry Joyce is here and says, I care about your reruns. Thank you. So this weekend, we've got quite the deep dive. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it'll be going from 9 p.m. to like 9 a.m. It's a long one. And we like this because also many people from across the pond, it's a different time for them. It's like dinner time for them instead of 3 o'clock in the morning. So they're tuning in. This last one that we got was super, super well received. And to be quite honest with you, was an incredible, unexpected source of fundraising. I wasn't expecting, sometimes somebody throws super chats, great, but we did great this past weekend. So we're going to keep doing it. I don't know how long I could keep up this pace, however. And it's so funny. For those unaware, I have one really decent computer with a 1080 video card in it, but I also have a bunch of beaters, and I've been rendering those really long episodes on the beaters because I don't want to tie up my main computer for 5 hours rendering a 12-hour long HD video or whatever it is. And on rendering the Skinwalker Ranch episode, which is 12 hours for this weekend, the computer just started smoking and died, one of the beaters. So then I had to take the hard drive out of the computer, put it in my good computer, and render it on that. So we're going to be needing some new beaters. I'm wearing out more computers than shoes, but of course I'm pushing old computers to do things that they were, I got like a Core 2 Duo, and I'm like, here, render this 12-hour video in HD, right? Anthony M says, cheers, Stephen, and you guys for making me smile. Glad we could do it, Anthony M, and I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're all here. We had great attendance tonight, and I really think tonight was an important show to sort of educate people and to sort of try to bookend things or wrap things up. It's clear that UFO promoters are influencing members of government. We've seen Paul Hellyer was influenced by these people. Dave Grush is influencing members of Congress and the Senate to waste time and resources on what I believe is a fruitless endeavor. It's really a sight to see. And they're also manipulating members of the media. I forgot to touch on this point, but there have been multiple members of the media, including Brian Bender and others, who basically say that they were manipulated by people like Lou Elizondo and others into covering the story their way. There is a cult of UFO promoters that are actively influencing and even making demands of our elected officials. It's very disturbing. And then there's also the phenomenon of some of the government officials within our United States government and other governments certainly are complete and total wackadoos, like we've witnessed tonight, that just read these UFO books, they become convinced, and you can't snap them out of that rabbit hole. It's truly disturbing. We want to thank Dawn for a kind and generous £5 super chat, and also for being a member. It says, high-ranking officer, have they not seen Apocalypse Now? Very good point. But we thank you, Dawn, for being a show supporter. Thank you for your attendance. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being a member. And thank you for helping us to praise the cash.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
All right. We'll take some comments and questions from the live chat. So questions or comments for me, please put them in all capital letters. It helps me to quickly identify that you want me to share it. I watch and listen to the reruns also. I find it entertaining, and I hear something I missed the first time. Yeah, you've been here forever, Archaic Revival, so they are really reruns to you. You saw them the first time, right? But I'm glad that people are enjoying them. But I do have to warn that I don't know how long I can keep up this pace. Like, I just finished rendering the Skinwalker Ranch this weekend episode. You know, for those unaware, unless you have a really good brand new gaming computer, rendering a 12-hour HD video on an old beater is not, you know, it takes like a day and a half. It's not, it doesn't, and I'm racing for time to get them rendered. You know, first I have to edit them. And by the way, I'm not doing much editing. I'm cutting out some of the end parts, where a lot of the end parts, I talk to the live chat like I'm doing now for a half hour or an hour. And that's just not, the important part is the information, like the presentation that we did at the beginning of tonight's broadcast. So I'm just cutting out some of the fluff. I don't know why I keep getting thrown out of my own stream. Plan D says Tandy 2K. Did you know Plan D? Thanks for being a member. Did you know I worked at Radio Shack? It was one of the first jobs I ever had. And I think I was the youngest employee of Radio Shack in Radio Shack history. I hung out at Radio Shack so much, being the electronics computer dork that I was, that I got very friendly with the manager. And when I was 14 years old, he had to do something like inventory and restocking, and he didn't have enough staff members. So he asked me if I would like a job, and I had to get working papers, and then he had to get special permission to hire a miner and all this stuff. But anyway, I worked there for years, and I actually had a Tandy 2000, which was a weird beast, and I had a Tandy 3000, which I think was only a 386, you know. I loved Radio Shack, and I miss Radio Shack. But the last 5 or 10 years of Radio Shack, they just became a phone store. It wasn't like when I was a child and you could go there and get, well, you could, but there was so little of the electronic parts and things. I was always building electronic things, radios and transmitters, and, you know, I built stun guns when I was a kid. I was kind of a weird kid. Yes, Mark J. Cox. William, you can bunk it here or disappear because I'm at a time. Wow. Okay. Yes, Richard Warner is here and says they are absolutely manipulators. Can't say that I disagree with you. Arlene Atkins says, I really enjoy the reruns. I am forgetful, so they are like new to me. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm very glad to hear that people are enjoying them. And I, you know, look, I can't help but like laugh though when somebody sends me a nasty message, you know, like I think I know who that is, right? It's some bitter, jealous, angry little man. Mushroom people and a visit to, I don't know what you're talking about, Mark. Wise Monkey says, Steve, great show as always. Oh, do you think it's now becoming a bit too easy to take the puss out of the believer imbeciles, taking the sport out of it. No, it's not easy because, quite honestly, a lot of them just ignore what I put out. They don't want to know the other side of it, which is unfortunate. Wise Monkey, I'm trying to stop this, but I'm getting arguments with people on some of my Twitter threads because they demand I show them evidence of something I said. And then I send them a video and they go, I'm not watching 2 hours of this. Send me the links to the documents. And then I did that, and he still wanted to argue with me and tell me how wrong I was. These people refuse to look at the evidence that I present. Richard Warner says, your reruns are great and age well in this inquiry. Thank you. I appreciate that. Zapped by Wilcock. That's what happened. That's what happened. I used to love walking around Radio Shack back in the day. I was very fortunate that manager, his name was Dave. Someday I'm going to have to look him up because sometimes somebody will come into your life and really affect your life in a very positive way, and you don't realize it until decades later. Like, that guy was so important to my teenage years because he was he's just such a positive guy. And honestly, he was a little selfish too because he didn't have anybody in the store that knew computers as well as I did. I was a little bit of a whiz kid, so he wanted to give me a job so that if they had problems, I could help them. And I used to hang out in the store even before I had a job. I would help them set up displays and stuff. Once in a while, there would be like repacks, which means somebody returned something, but they ripped the package and it looked like shit. And he didn't want to sell those, so he would give me free parts and stuff. But he was just a great guy, and he really affected my life in a positive way. And those people are invaluable. 300 pages of DOS on cassette tape for a game. Yes. Yeah, I had a Commodore 64, and sometimes it would take 25 minutes to load a game, right? Yeah, you know what? Listen, I'm going to tell you this one time, Mark. You're talking all kinds of nonsense in my live chat. Nobody even knows what you're talking about. Be kind to everyone here, including me. I'm ignorant now. I don't even know what the hell you're talking about, Mark. Just be nice. You're welcome here, but try to be nice to the other chat participants, even if you disagree. Or if you disagree with me, as long as you're respectful. Wise Monkey says, yeah, they're not interested in logic sometimes. Just troll them with parody. I've had a great time today. Check out that thread I tagged you in. Obviously, I'm spouting nonsense. Yes, I know. I seen your other thread where you were like, I know where the money is. Send me my money. Red alert. Gato 1. Run program DOS. Yes. Yeah. 10 print. Go fuck yourself. 20 Gato 10. I used to do that on computers all the time that were displays, right? Patty says, Stephen, appreciate your work. I appreciate you being here, Patty. You're a longtime show supporter. The only store that close to me is Best Buy is up in Knoxville, and those employees are clueless. Yeah, I kind of miss stores. Did you know so many stores are closing? I have a feeling that we could reach a point where all you have in your neighborhood is a supermarket and Amazon, right? Like an Amazon fulfillment center or something. So many old stores are closed, right? You need Radio Shack to build a UFO. Absolutely. Absolutely. 10 print, hello world. Yes. Yeah, that's how I started, basic programming. And then I moved to Turbo Pascal, and I moved to C, then I moved to Python and some other things that I use now. Yeah, a lot of places are closing. Richard Warder, if anyone is serious about the UFO phenomenon, they need to watch your show. It gives a person new eyes because there are lots of grifters out there. Yeah, Richard Warder, thanks for that comment. Good comment. And, it's just difficult because we're fighting an uphill battle here. People just hear this stuff. They really want to believe it's true. I would love to believe that the aliens are visiting Earth and we have alien technology. That would be the coolest thing ever. You ever get a 150 and 1 kit at Radio Shack? Yes, and I have one over in the corner in a box with the wires, and you connect the terminals together. Yeah, my dad was also very supportive of my interest in electronics, and my dad helped me build my first AM radio kit. My dad taught me how to solder, Amy Collins, and And back in the day, if you know how to solder, especially if you know how to unsolder and solder in new chips, you were a very valuable resource to anybody with computers or electronics needs, because, back then, like a CPU chip would have 40 pins, right? So you'd have to solder 40 pins into the board. And I don't know why, but I just excelled at soldering. And so if you get good at soldering, you could build anything in electronics, and you could fix anything because you could identify, oh, this chip is bad. And you just desolder the old chip and pull it and put a new chip in and resolder it, and you cut the pins. And like, I kind of miss some of that stuff. And Amy Collins, I've decided that my son needs a summer project. So we're going to build a giant robot. I don't know how giant yet. My wife is already getting concerned. But we're going to build a giant robot. It's going to be for truth seekers, too. We're going to use it. Stephen is great at what he does, but he's too skeptical of anything he does not understand. And I see his face making fun of me, and I'm not putting up with it. Then don't come here anymore. Don't be belligerent. I don't even know what the hell you're talking about. I didn't say I didn't believe what you're saying. You're talking a bunch of nonsense, though. You're talking a bunch of word salad stuff. I'm running a live show here. I don't have time to like research whatever bullshit claims you're making in the live chat. Everybody is welcome here, but you have to be respectful. Arlene, that's our scary future. Admiral Rascal says robots are cool. I think one of the main reasons that I got into electronics and computers was robots. It was, I grew up watching Star Wars. I just loved robots. I always wanted to build. I built so many contraptions. You could call them robots. In my shed at the cabin, Admiral Rascals, I have a bunch of robot projects in various states of disrepair. Some of them work. Some of them are falling apart and need to be reworked. And but I've decided I'm going to bring those home for the summer, because I'm quite honestly, during the summer, I'm stuck here with 2 kids all day long for 10 hours a day. I need something else to do. So we're going to pull out the robots, because my son is getting interested in electronics. Make the robots say, praise the cash, praise the cash. Good idea. That's a good idea. We're going to put them right on the set here. And actually, I can have a little remote or something. And every time somebody sends a super chat, I can make them dance and say, praise the cash. There's a real world use for, we definitely need a giant dancing robot in here. Yes. Admiral Rascal says desoldering is a great way to get free parts from discarded electronics. Do you know, when I was a kid, Admiral Rascals, I used to pick the trash of anything electronic. Like if there was a radio in the trash, a turntable, a VCR, an old computer, circuit boards, whatever, and I would desolder parts from them. So I didn't buy like capacitors or resistors or transistors or common parts. I would just take them off of boards, and I had bins that I would put everything in. Yeah, growing up poor is good sometimes. You learn some skills. If the apocalypse ever comes, I'll be able to build anything electronic I need, Admiral Rascals. And I still, I have desoldering pads and bulbs, and most of the time I just use a rag and a soldering iron, and you just push it out of the way, though. Thomas Robinson says, you've got to be in a neutral mind about UFOs or anything paranormal in this day and age. Yeah. I truly believe that. Dancing, well, that's not a good word, Hank McGurk. You got to say little people now. It's not politically correct to use the M word. Mark J. Cox, he may be skeptical, but he's not too skeptical. These grifters are heavyweights. They have shame. And Stephen is on to their BS. Yeah, thanks, Richard Warner. I appreciate that. Archaic Revival says, Mark, I'm here. What is it? It's okay. Mark talks to ant aliens. Is that what he was talking about? Yeah, what are you going to do? AI robot co-host. Yeah, that might happen. We'll see. Yeah, I can put this fair use banner down. So We've done our due diligence. I'm going to bounce on out of here. We have quite a weekend planned, and I just want to say that I will be at the cabin, and the internet there is not good enough most of the time for me to stream, but it's good enough for me. Well, it's good enough for me to stream at like 240 or 360p and participate in the live chat. So I'll be checking in to the live chat this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights at 9 p.m. We have now claimed 9 p.m. We're going to try to do something on this channel at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every day, which is a tall order. I'm not sure how long I can keep that up, but I'm just so pleased that the show keeps growing and the support for the show keeps growing as well, including the financial support. Thank you all very much for your kindness, generosity, and support. We have thanked those that we need to thank. I'll just take a moment to check in with the PayPal for those unaware. Besides the super chats, especially if you're sending a big amount, we appreciate if you send it through PayPal. Just add a note and give us your chat room user ID and any message that you would like for us. So we have from North, the kind and generous $50 PayPal says, Wilcox $333 course in griftology. Greatest name ever, griftology. Thank you, North, for your kindness, generosity, and support. Very generous of you. North is the MVP of Super Chats. Always throwing like $50 in our hat. Thank you. Very generous of you, North.
Raise the cash, raise the cash, raise the cash.
We had a good night of praising the cash. We had a good night of educating people, of peeling back some layers of deception. And I'm thankful for that. So I think I'm going to bounce on out of here. Tomorrow, my children have off all day, so that will be fun. But then I will be packing up and heading up to the cabin to try to make some more progress on my porch roof. But I will be checking into the live chat for these streamathons. Please don't expect me to be in there for 11 or 12 hours. And what I have decided to do is if I'm in the live chat for the first 5 hours or whatever, and I'm thanking anybody sending super chats, whoever I miss, I'll read on the very next live show. And that should be Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we've done our due diligence. I want to thank you, kind and generous benefactors, you super chatters, Patreon supporters, YouTube channel members, super chatters, Twitch subscribers, PayPal pledgers. We love and appreciate all of you. We're a viewer-supported show. Thank you for supporting the show. So that's all I got for you, friends. Until next time, my name is Stephen Cambion. Good night, and God bless all of you.